राज्य मध्ये एव हेयतया विचारितो विहाय श्रीकृष्णाङ्घ्रि सेवाम् अधिमन्यमानः सर्वपुरुषार्थाधिकां जानन्। He considered service to the lotus feet of Sri Krishna to be superior to all the Purusharthas. He understood that prayam an ashanam tasmin ityarthah tat sankalpena upavisha mahavisha. Yeah. So he sat down to fast. Prayam, because he wanted to fast. Yatva prayam prakrishtamayam sharanam yatha bhavati tatha. Another meaning of prayam is he wanted to properly and fully surrender unto Lord Shri Krishna. Purastar, even before, even before the curse, he had considered happiness that can be attained in this life and happiness that can be attained in the next life to be inferior to service to Lord Shri Krishna. Nashanam pratyupavisha. Sankalpena upavisha. For a devotee like Maharaj Parikshit, none of the material planets, even the topmost one, Brahmaloka, is as desirable as Gauranga Vrindavan, the original, sorry, the abode of Lord Shri Krishna, the primeval Lord and the original personality of Godhead. This earth is one of the innumerable material planets within the universe, and there are innumerable universes also within the compass of the Mahatattva. The devotees are told by the Lord and his representatives, the spiritual masters or acharyas, that not one of the planets within all the innumerable universes is suitable for the residential purposes of a devotee. The devotee always desires to go back home, back to Godhead, thus to become one of the associates of the Lord, in the capacity of servitor, friend, parent, or conjugal lover of the Lord, either in one of the innumerable Vaikuntha planets or in Gauranga, the planet of Lord Shri Krishna. All these planets are eternally situated in the spiritual sky, the Paravyama, or the other side of the causal ocean, which lies within the Mahatattva. Maharaj Parikshit was already aware of all this information due to his accumulated piety and birth in a high family of devotees, Vaishnavas, and thus he was not at all interested in the material planets. Modern scientists are very eager to reach the moon by material arrangements, but they cannot conceive of the highest planet of this universe. But a devotee like Maharaj Parikshit does not care a fig for the moon, or for that matter, any of the material planets. So when he was assured of his death at a fixed rate, he became more determined in the transcendental loving service of Lord Krishna by complete fasting on the bank of the transcendental river Yamuna, which flows down by the capital of Hastinapur in the Delhi state. Both the Ganges and the Yamuna are Amartya transcendental rivers, and the Yamuna is still more sanctified for the following reasons. 6. या वै लसक्षी तुलसी विमिश्र कृष्णाङ्कृष्णाधिकाम्बुनेत्री पुरातिलोकान् उभयत्र शेषान् कस्तां न सेवेत मरिष्यमाणः. The river Ganges, by which the kings had to fast, carries the most auspicious water, which is mixed with the dust of the lotus feet of the Lord and tulsi leaves. Therefore, that water sanctifies the three worlds inside and outside, and even sanctifies Lord Shiva and other demigods. Consequently, everyone who is destined to die must take shelter of this river. Amartyana Dhyamiti Visheshanasya Phlamaha. He had noted, Sutta Goswami had noted that he had decided to fast on the bank of the Ganges, and he used this word Amartya Nadyam to refer to the Ganges. Amartya Nadyam means the immortal river. So the natural conclusion that one would come to regarding Ganges is stated here. The Visheshanasya Pamaha Ya Ganga Lasanti Shri Yasya Sulasya Staya Vimishra Ye Krishankarenavas Tairabhyathikam Sarvat Krishnam Yadambu Rasya Netri Tadvahini Ubhayatra Antarvahishya Seshan Lokapale Sehtan Sa Isha Madhishyamana Asanna Marana. Everyone who is destined to die. Very nice translations. Asanna Marana. Maranasya Aniyata Kalatvat Sarvepi Tatha. And everyone is destined to die because none of us know at what time we are going to die. It is not regulated, planned, and informed to us. Atastam Kona Seveta. So who will not want to worship that Ganga? Rajiva Goswami. Prayopaveshishchayam tasyam amartyanadhyam eva yuktah. It is appropriate that he did that. Yatas tasyam tad abhishtasya ki krishnasya sambandha sarvesham pavanatvam ch sputam drishyata ityastam tasya brahmana aparadha kalushabhitasya Shri Krishnangri sevam eva ch sarvadika purushartha taya lipso varta sarvasyapi jivasya tatrapya asanya varnasya sa eva ashriyatam yogya. It is this river that was fit to be taken shelter of by everyone, by Parikshit, who, because he could see very clearly a direct relationship with Lord Sri Krishna, who was his cherished Lord. It is very clearly seen that this river purifies everyone. So then what to speak of Parikshit, who was frightened of the contamination that had come about by offending a Brahmana. He had considered service to the lotus feet of Sri Krishna to be a Purushartha superior to all other Purusharthas. And he wanted to attain that. Every living entity who desired, who is about to face death, to take shelter of her. Her means this river. Yavai Tadashatvena Swayam Prasiddha. She is comparable to herself, and it is well known. Punar Lasat Shriyas Tadanim Prachurataya Vrindavana Jata Yastulasya Tabhir Vimishra Purvam Mishri Bhuta Aikyam Prapta Ya Vrindavana Stita Swayam Bhagavadashi Krishnasya Ankri Renavaha Tair Abhyatikam Yamuna Rupam. This water is the water in the form of Yamuna, which is greater because it's mixed with the dust of the lotus feet of Sri Krishna, Swayam Bhagavan. The dust that is found in Vrindavana. And in that way, she shines in her opulences and beauty even more. Tasyapi netri vodvityarsaha. That water was here. This river was carrying that water. Abhyatikatvam cha uttam adivarahe. And it's greater because of, she is greater because it was mixed with the dust of the lotus feet of the Lord. Ganga Shataguna Punya Mathure Mama Mandale Yamuna Vishruta Devi Natrakarya Vicharana iti. In Adivaraha Purana, it stated that Yamuna, in the Lord is speaking to Prithvi Devi, Bhudevi. The Lord is saying, in my Mathura Mandala, the pious river Yamuna is possessing 100 times the qualities of Ganga. This is very well known. There's no need to consider this matter further. जलप्रवाहरूपा गंगा हि यत्र वोढ्री बाह्यं च तादृकं भू तो भिन्ना कृष्ण शब्दस्य रूढ्या श्री गोपाल एव अधिकं प्रसिद्ध इति तु तथा व्याख्यातम्. Here the word Krishna refers to Krishna himself, Swayam Bhagavan. Maharaj Parikshit, just after receiving the news of his death within 7 days, at once retired from family life and shifted himself to the sacred bank of the Yamuna river. Generally, it is said that the king took shelter off the bank of the Ganges. But according to Srila Jiva Goswami, the king took shelter on the bank of the Yamuna. Srila Jiva Goswami's statement appears to be more accurate because of the geographical situation. Maharaj Parikshit resided in his capital Hastinapur, situated near present Delhi, and the river Yamuna flows down past the city. Naturally, the kings would take shelter of the river Yamuna because she was flowing past his palace door. And as far as sanctity is concerned, the river Yamuna is more directly connected with Lord Krishna than the Ganges. The Lord sanctified the river Yamuna from the beginning of his transcendental pastimes in the world, while his father Vasudeva was crossing the Yamuna with the baby Lord Krishna for a safe place at Gokula on the other bank of the river from Mathura. The Lord fell down into the river, and by the dust of his lotus feet, the river at once sanctified, at once became sanctified. It is especially mentioned here that Maharaj Parikshit took shelter of that particular river, which is beautifully flowing, carrying the dust of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna mixed with tulasi leaves. Lord Krishna's lotus feet are always besmeared with the tulasi leaves, and thus, as soon as his lotus feet contact the water of the Ganges and the Yamuna, the rivers become once sanctified. The Lord, however, contacted the river Yamuna more than the Ganges. According to the Varaha Purana, as quoted by Srila Jiva Goswami, there is no difference between the water of the Ganges and the Yamuna. But when the water of the Ganges is sanctified 100 times, it is called the Yamuna. Similarly, it is said in the scriptures that 1000 names of Vishnu are equal to one name of Rama, and 3 names of Lord Rama are equal to one name of Krishna. 7. Okay, I thought there was a question somewhere. So when he was assured of his death on a fixed date, he became more determined. Unless we are kept in such situations, can't we become more determined? It's very unfortunate if we will become determined only in some situation like that. It's also very dangerous to think of this possibility. Then something may happen, and the doctor will come and tell you, actually, you'll live only for another 3.5 months. And then suddenly our world is turned upside down. Better that we just consider that we are going to uh, die anytime. It's unpredictable by that particular condition soul. And we take shelter of Krishna's holy name. We take shelter of Panchanga, of Krishna through Panchanga Bhakti. 7. Iti vyavachidya sapandavaya prayopavesham prativishnupatya dathau mukundankrim ananya bhavo munivrato mukta samasta sangraha. Thus the king, the worthy descendant of the Pandavas, decided once and for all and sat on the Ganges bank to fast until death and give himself up to the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, who alone is able to award liberation. So, freeing himself from all kinds of associations and attachments, he accepted the vows of a sage. इत्येवं विष्णुपद्यां गंगायां प्रायोपवेशं प्रति व्यवच्छिद्य निश्चित्य पाण्डवेय इति तत् कुलौचित्यं दर्शयति. The word Pandaveya here indicates that he was fit to be in that dynasty. Nasti anyasmin bhavaha yasya saha. His mind was fixed without any deviation on the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. Kutaha. How's that? Munivrataha. Because he had accepted the vows of a sage. Upashantaha, which means he had become tranquil. Tatkutaha. And how's that? Muktaha. Samasta sangaha yena saha. Because he was liberated from all forms of attachments. Sangha, Bhaktivinoda Thakur points out, Bhakti-aloka has two meanings. One is association, and the other is attachment. न अन्यस्मिन् कर्मज्ञान देवतान्तरे भावो यस्य सः ananya bhava. Krishna Chakravati Thakur has interpreted this word very nicely to say that he, without any deviation, he fixed his mind on the lotus feet of Lord Krishna means that he gave up the attitude of submitting to karma, jnana, or other worshipable deities. Of course, there's no question of Nyavilashita or adharma. Ananya bhava Krishnaika nishtha. The Varadev Vidyabhushan says that it means that he was exclusively focused on attaining Lord Krishna. The water of the Ganges sanctifies all the three worlds, including the gods and the demigods, because it emanates from the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead Vishnu. Lord Krishna is the fountainhead of the principle of Vishnu Tattva, and therefore the shelter of his lotus feet can deliver one from all sins, including an offense committed by a king unto a Brahmana. Maharaj Parikshit, therefore, decided to meditate upon the lotus feet of Lord Shri Krishna, who is Mukunda, the giver of liberations of all description. The banks of the Ganges or Yamuna give one a chance to remember the Lord continuously. Maharaj Parikshit freed himself from all sorts of material association and meditated upon the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, and that is the way of liberation. To be free from all material association means to cease completely from committing any further sins. To meditate upon the lotus feet of the Lord means to become free from the effect of all previous sins. Deshagni, Shubhata. Unless one is free from one's previous sinful reactions, one cannot be firmly, uninterruptedly be fixed in Krishna's lotus feet. Yesham tu antagatam papam, dhananam punya karmanam. The conditions of the material world are so made that one has to commit sins willingly or unwillingly. And the best example is Maharaj Parikshit himself, who was a recognized sinless, pious king. But he also became a victim of the offense he committed against a Brahmana, even though he was ever unwilling to commit such a mistake. He was cursed also, but because he was a great devotee of the Lord, even such reverses of life became favorable. The principle is that one should not willingly commit any sin in his life and should constantly remember the lotus feet of the Lord without delay. Only if a devotee is in such a mood will the Lord help him make regular progress toward the path of liberation and thus attain the lotus feet of the Lord. Even if there are accidental sins committed by the devotee, the Lord saves the surrendered soul from all sins as committed, as confirmed in all scriptures. Swapadamoolam bhajatah priyasya chaitanya bhavasya harik paresha vikarma yachotpatitam kathanchit dhunoti sarvam hridisannivishta. The devotee of the Lord never commits sins willingly, but as above mentioned, the material world is a place where one has to commit sins even unwillingly. The finest way to save oneself from the reactions to such accidental sins is to constantly remember the lotus feet of the Lord. But one who deliberately commits sins on the strength of the Lord's assurance that he will save his devotee from sinful reactions commits the greatest of sins. And there is no deliverance for such a person, even by constantly remembering the lotus feet of the Lord. Such a willful offender has no chance of being freed from the clutches of fruitive action. Therefore, shelter of lotus feet can deliver one from all sins, including an offense committed by a king unto a Brahmana. We hear that Lord cannot forgive the person who commits offense at his devotees. But Shringi was not a pure devotee and all. He's just a Brahmana. It's a sin. It's not an offense, even though the king was thinking that it's an offense. 8. Tatropajagmurubhuvanam punana mahanubhava munayasya shishya prayena tirtha vigamapadeshai swayam hi tirthani punanti santaha. At that time, all the great-minded thinkers, accompanied by their disciples and sages who could verily sanctify a place of pilgrimage just by their presence, arrived there on the plea of making a pilgrim's journey. When Maharaj Parikshit sat down on the bank of the Ganges, the news spread in all directions of the universe, and the great-minded sages who could follow the importance of the occasion all arrived there on the plea of pilgrimage. Actually, they came to meet Maharaj Parikshit and not to take a bath while on pilgrimage, because all of them were competent enough to sanctify the places of pilgrimage. Common men go to pilgrimage sites to get themselves purified of all sins. Thus, the places of pilgrimage become overburdened with the sins of others. But when such sages visit overburdened places of pilgrimage, they sanctify the places by their presence. Therefore, the sages who came to Parikshit were not very much interested in getting themselves purified like common men. But on the plea of taking a bath in that place, they came to meet Maharaj Parikshit because they could foresee that Srimad Bhagavatam would be spoken by Shukadev Goswami. All of them wanted to take advantage of great association. The banks of the Ganges or Yamuna can give one a chance to remember the Lord continuously. Continuously means continuously, uninterruptedly, uninterrupted. 9 and 10. अत्र वसिष्ठश्चवनः शरद्वान् अरिष्टनेमिर्भृगुरङ्गिराश्च पराशरो गाधिसुतोऽथ राम उतथ्य इन्द्र प्रमथेद्म वाहौ मेधातिथिर्देवलो देवल आष्टिशेनो भारद्वाजो गौतमः पिपलाद मैत्रेय और्वः कवशः कुम्भयोने द्वैपायनो भगवान् नारदश्च from different parts of the universe there arrived great sages like Atri, Chavana, Sharadvan, Arishtanemi, Prugu, Vasishtha, Parashara, Vishwamitra, Angira, Parashurama, Utathya, Indrapramada, Ismavaha, Medaditi, Devala, Ashtishena, Bharadwaja, Gautama, Vipalada, Maitreya, Urva, Kavasha, Kumbhayoni, Dvaipayana, and the great personality Narada. Tatra Tada Tadashanartham Muniya Upagata Natu Tirthasnanatham. So they came to see him, not for taking a bath in that pilgrimage site. Because they were already perfect. No, Tadrishanam api tirthayatra drishyate. But even those who are perfect in self-realization, they go for pilgrimages. This is seen. Tatraha prayena iti. Tirthayatra vyajai. This is simply a pretext. Where pilgrimage is just a text. Tatreti साक्षात श्री भगवत पाद संबंधीनि गंगाधीनि विना इदिगे तेषु तेषामपि परम आदरा. This is a reference to it's a word. When it is said that the great sages, the greatly experienced sages who purify the worlds arrived there, it should be understood that they came out of great respect for um, rivers like the Ganges, who are directly connected with Sri Bhagavan, with the lotus feet of Sri Bhagavan. They did not personally think that they were going to purify these places. They came to the conclusion that their confidential conclusion was it is more important to meet Parikshit than to just take advantage of the holy places. They came to drink the nectar of Sri Bhagavatam. They knew that this is going to happen because they were omniscient and the opportunity had suddenly come about. This is the implication. Not change. Shyavana, a great sage and one of the sons of Bhrigu. He was born prematurely when his pregnant mother was kidnapped. Shyavana is one of the six sons of his father. Bhrigu. When Brahmaji was performing a great sacrifice on behalf of Varuna, Maharshi Bhrigu was born from the sacrificial fire. He was a great sage and his very dear wife was Puloma. He could travel in space like Durvasa, Narada, and others, and he used to visit all the planets of the universe. Before the battle of Kurukshetra, he tried to stop the battle. Sometimes he instructed Bharadwaja Muni about astronomical evolution. He is the author of the Bhrigu Samhita, the great astrological calculation. He explained how air, fire, water, and earth are generated from ether. He explained how the air in the stomach works and regulates the intestines. As a great philosopher, he logically established the eternity of the living entity, Mahabharata. There is a logical explanation about the existence of the soul as different from the body. In the Mahabharata, Madhvacharya quotes it in his first commentary to the Vedanta Sutra. It needs to be checked whether Bhrigu brought out those points. He was also a great anthropologist, and the theory of evolution was long ago explained by him. Of course, the Vedic scriptures talk about inverse evolution, from higher living beings to lower living beings. He was a scientific proponent of the four divisions and orders of human society, known as the Varnashram institution. He converted the Kshatriya king, Vitahavya, into a Brahmana. Question here. But we took bath many times, we don't get such attachment. We take bath many times in these holy rivers and so on. But we don't do it with the right attitude. If we do it with the right attitude, then we get such attachment to Krishna's lotus feet. Accidental sins. What does it mean? It means that we commit some forbidden activity and we repent for it. We understand it is wrong. Repent for it. It should be followed by repentance, honest repentance, and the endeavor to discontinue that activity. Otherwise, it will become duplicity. Cease completely from committing any further sins. We also hear that we commit unlimited sins in Kali Yuga. How is it possible to cease them? If we engage in Bhakti Yoga as taught by Rupa Goswami continuously, then it is possible. Vasishtha. See Srimad Bhagavatam 1.9.6 to 7. Good point. Parashara, he is the grandson of Vasishtha Muni, the father of Vyasadeva. He is the son of Maharshi Shakti, and his mother's name was Adrishyati. He was in the womb of his mother when she was only 12 years old, and from within the womb of his mother, he learnt the Vedas. His father was killed by a demon, Kalmashapada, and to avenge this, he wanted to annihilate the whole world. He was restrained, however, by his grandfather Vasishtha. He then performed a Rakshasa killing yajna, but Maharshi Pulastya restrained him. He begot Vyasadeva, being attracted by Satyavati, who was to become the wife of Maharaj Shantanu. By the blessings of Parashara, Satyavati became fragrant for miles. He was present also during the time of Bhishma's death. He was the spiritual master of Maharaj Janaka and a great devotee of Lord Shiva. He is the author of many Vedic scriptures and sociological directions. Parashara Smriti is known Dharma Shastra. Gadhi Sutta or Vishwamitra, a great sage of austerity and mystic power. He is famous as Gadhi Sutta because his father was Gadhi, a powerful king of the province of Kanya Kurja, part of Uttar Pradesh. Although he was a Kshatriya by birth, he became a Brahmana in the very same body by the power of his spiritual achievements. He picked a quarrel with Vasishtha Muni when he was a Kshatriya king and performed a great sacrifice in cooperation with Matanga Muni. Matanga. What is it? Matanga. And thus he was able to vanquish the sons of Vasishtha. He became a great yogi, yet he failed to check his senses. and thus was obliged to become the father of Shakuntala, the beauty queen of world history. Once, when he was a Kshatriya king, he visited the hermitage of Vasishtha Muni, and he was given a royal reception. Swamitra wanted from Vasishtha a cow named Nandini, and the Muni refused to deliver it. Vishwamitra stole the cow, and thus there was a quarrel between the sage and the king. Vishwamitra was defeated by the spiritual strength of Vasishtha, and thus the king decided to become a Brahmana. Before becoming a Brahmana, he underwent severe austerity on the bank of the Kaushika. He was also one of those who tried to stop the Kurukshetra war. Indira is one of the 6 mental sons of Brahma, the father of Brihaspati, the great learned priest of the demigods in the heavenly planets. He was born of the semen of Brahmaji, given to a cinder of fire. Utatya and Samvarta are his sons. It is said that he is still performing austerity and chanting the holy names of the Lord at a place known as Alokananda on the bank of the Ganges. It could be Alakananda also. Parashuram, see Srimad Bhagavatam 1.9.6-7. Purport. Satya, one of the 3 sons of Maharshi Angira, he was a spiritual master of Maharaj Mandhata. He married Bhadra, the daughter of Soma, Moon. Varuna kidnapped his wife Bhadra, and to retaliate the offense of the god of water, he drank all the water of the world. Medatithi, an old sage of Lord, an assembly member of the heavenly king Indradev. His son was Kanva Muni, who brought up Shakuntala in the forest. He was promoted to the heavenly planet by strictly following the principles of retired life. Vanaprastha, Devala, a great authority like Narada Muni and Vyasadeva. His good name is on the list of authorities mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita when Arjuna acknowledged Lord Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He met Maharaj Yudhishthira after the battle of Kurukshetra, and he was the elder brother of Dhaumya, the priest of the Pandava family. Like the Kshatriyas, he also allowed his daughter to select her own husband in a Swayamvara meeting. And at that ceremony, all the bachelor sons of the Rishis were invited. According to some, he is not Asita Devala. The question here, where is Alakananda, the Navadip Mandir? No, the Navadip Alakananda is in Navadip Mandir. This is the original Alakananda. The Himalayas it is there. Bharadwaja, see Srimad Bhagavatam 1.9.6-7. Gautama, one of the 7 great sages of the universe. Sharadvan, Gautama was one of his sons. Persons in the Gautama Gotra dynasty today are either his family descendants or his disciplic successors. Brahmanas who profess Gautama Gotra are generally family descendants. The Kshatriyas and Vaishyas who profess Gautama Gotra are all in the line of his disciplic succession. He was the husband of the famous Ahalya, who turned into stone when Indradev, the king of heaven, molested her. Ahalya was delivered by Lord Ramachandra. Gautama was the grandfather of Kripacharya, one of the heroes of the battle of Kurukshetra. Maitreya, a great rishi of Yoga, he was the spiritual master of Vidvan, and a great religious authority. He advised Dhritarashtra to keep good relations with the Pandavas. Duryodhana disagreed and thus was cursed by him. He met Vyasadeva and had religious discourses with him. Vaipayana Vyasadeva, see Srimad Bhagavatam 1.9.6-7. Purport. Narada Muni, see Srimad Bhagavatam 1.9.6-7. Purport. These are all really super VIPs. Very, very great souls. 11. Anye Chadevarshi Brahmarshi Varya Rajarshi Varya Ronadayascha Nanarshya Pravaram Sametan Abhyarcha Raja Shirasa Vande. There were also many other saintly demigods, kings, and special royal orders called Arunadayas, a special rank of Rajarshis from different dynasties of sages. When they all assembled together to meet the Emperor Parikshit, he received them properly and bowed his head to the ground. Arunadeha, Andashitu Shishan, no Prachapin. Ana Yamya Shela, Shina Vitrani, Pesu, Oran Shela. Shirasa, Uvam, Sprishwa, one day. Arunodaya. Arunodaya, Arunadaya. The system of bowing the head to the ground, show respect to superiors, is an excellent etiquette which obliges the honored guest deep into the heart. Even the first grade offender is excused simply by this process. And Maharaj Parikshit, although honored by all the rishis and queens, welcomed all the big men with that humble etiquette in order to be excused for many offenses. Generally, at the last stage of one's life, this humble method is adopted by every sensible man in order to be excused before departure. Maharaj Parikshit implored everyone's goodwill for going back home, back to God. Well, सुखोपविष्टे श्वसते शुभूय कृतप्रणामस्वचिकीर्षितं या विज्ञापयामास विवृत्तचेता उपस्थितो गृहीतपाणिः. After all the rishis and others had seated themselves comfortably, the king, humbly standing before them with folded hands, told them of his decision to fast until death. Vigyapanatham punah krita. He had a request to make, but before he made that request, again he offered obeisances on the floor. So this is the system. Viviktam Shuddham Cheto Yasya Abhigrihito Samyojito Pani Yena Saha Swachikirshitam Prayopaveshanadi Yuktam Ayuktam Ved Vigyapayamasa. So he told them of his decision to fast until death, and he asked them whether it is appropriate or not. Vigyapayamasa iti Vakshamanam ityeva gyayam. So that question, his submission, will be presented now. Folded hands. Abhigrihita Pani. What is that? Abhigrihita Pani. Folded hands. Tanjali. That means he joined the palms of his hands. Tanjali. This is a gesture in Vedic culture indicating submission. The Cheta indicates that his heart was pure, his mind was detached from worldly affairs. Although the king had already decided to fast until death on the bank of the Ganges, he humbly expressed his decision to elicit the opinions of the great authorities present there. Any important decision, however firmly fixed, should be confirmed by some authority that makes the matter perfect. This means that the monarchs who ruled the earth in those days were not irresponsible dictators. They scrupulously followed the authoritative decisions of the sages and saints in terms of Vedic injunction. Maharaj Parikshit, as a perfect king, followed the principles by consulting the authorities even up to the last days of his life. अहो वयम धन्य तमांद्रपाणो महत्तमानुग्रहणीय शीलाः आज्ञां कुलं ब्राह्मण पाद शौचात् दूरात् विसृष्टं बतगर्ह्य कर्म. The fortunate king said, indeed, we are the most grateful of all the kings, for we have been trained to get favors from the great souls. Generally, you, sages, consider royalty as a refuse to be rejected and left in a distant place. Anumodanena anugraham alakshya atmanam shlagate. So he praises himself. That means his good fortune upon seeing their mercy in the form of their permission. They had granted him permission. Nirvana madhye mahattamay anugrahanyam shriram vrittam yeshamte etacha ragyam atidurlabham. So this favor that he had received from these sages is extremely rare. Brahmananam pada shauchat pada chalana udakam dura uchishta vin mutra Ada Ambhamsi Samutsrijet iti Smrite. According to the Smriti, one should uh, keep one's Uchita, one's remnants, stool, urine, foot water, water that washes feet, far away. Durahita istadvasrijyate. In Vedic culture, you give up these things from a distance. Tatopi duradeva srishtam kshiptam. And the sages, they keep the royalty even far away from that. Tatrapi statum ayogyam iti artha. In other words, we Kshatriyas, we are not even fit to stand before you. Karhyam karma yasya. Arpanamurtishyok. Because we engage in very terrible activities, abominable activities. Oh, Asharyam. Aho indicates that he was struck with wonder. Asharyam, what is the wonder? Tatraham, Panamadhye Vayam Pandavaha. Bhartamanam Bhotam Anagraham Shilayanti Ye Swayambhuvalayas. Adrishaha Santaha Dhanyatamaha Jata. Swatastu Nirpanam Kulam Idrisham Ityaha Ragyami. We have been trained to get favors from the great souls means we Pandavas, the descendants of Pandu. Swatastu Nirpanam Kulam Idrisham Ityaha Ragyami. But I personally, I'm not fit to stand before you. I refuse to be rejected by all of you. Yataha Garhyam Karma. Because of the abominable activities characterized by violence. It is simply the natural mercy of these great sages that has brought about this situation. They are all habituated to naturally be merciful. The royalty is kept very far away because of their condemnable activities. This statement of the king is simply due to his humility. Anyatha Rajakulena sa Brahmananam Vyavahar Ukteya Yakubyeya. It is simply out of humility speaking like this, because otherwise it would contradict the scriptural statements of the Brahmanas and the Kshatriyas dealing with each other in a cooperative manner. Several statements that they should work together for the good of society. According to religious principles, one must leave stool, urine, wash water, etc. at a long distance. Attached bathrooms, urinals, etc. may be very convenient amenities of modern civilization, but they are ordered to be situated at a distance from residential quarters. That very example is cited here in relation to the kingly order for those who are progressively marching back home, back to God. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that to be in intimate touch with dollars and cents men of the kingly order is worse than suicide for one who desires to go back to Godhead. In other words, the transcendentalists do not generally associate with men who are too enamored with the external beauty of God's creation. By advanced knowledge and spiritual realization, the transcendentalist knows that this beautiful material world is nothing but a shadowy reflection of the reality, the kingdom of God. They are not, therefore, very much captivated by royal opulence or anything like that. But in the case of Maharaj Parikshit, the situation was different. Apparently, the king was condemned to death by an inexperienced Brahmana boy. But actually, he was called by the Lord to return to him. Other transcendentalists, the great sages and mystics who assembled together because of Maharaj Parikshit's fasting unto death, were quite anxious to see him, for he was going back to Godhead. Maharaj Parikshit also could understand that the great sages who assembled there were all kind to his forefathers, the Pandavas, because of their devotion service to the Lord. He therefore felt grateful to the sages for being present there at the last stage of his life. He felt that it was all due to the greatness of his late forefathers or grandfathers. He felt proud, therefore, that he happened to be the descendant of such great devotees. Such pride in being related to the devotees of the Lord is certainly not equal to the puffed up sense of vanity for material prosperity. The first is reality, whereas the other is false and vain. Okay, I have some time, so I'm going to take up Bhagavatamarichimala. I stop. In Bhagavatamarichimala, I have taken up 23. Chitanam Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Prabhu, as per purport, this intimate touch with those who are too enamored by external beauty. So, the entire world is like this, and even I myself is like this. So, how to avoid this intimate touch? And because at certain times it's unavoidable. Like,
Why is it unavoidable? Why we should do what is needed to get the hell out of all this? We have enough troubles. Why should we increase it? There's a question here in the chat box. What is real humility? Real humility is when we understand that actually we are not as great as we think we are. How does one develop it? When we make spiritual progress and come towards a mode of goodness, and then we realize um, the situation in which we are caught up with, then we understand that all the problems of material existence experienced by us is exclusively caused by us. Then only we develop. It's with Sambandha Gyan that we realize that. Okay. There, but 1.23. 1.23 is our attached bathrooms, urinals, etc. We are maintaining them very intimately. Any other solution for this? It will be good to examine how buildings were constructed even 2 centuries back. I think that they arranged for bathrooms to be constructed separately. So when we get the opportunity, we should also arrange for these things like that. It's a gigantic mess. Modern civilization is a gigantic mess. And inside this mess, we are trying to practice Krishna consciousness very sincerely. It is bound to be very, very difficult. That is why Krishna is giving a whole system. Why does not Krishna? He teaches in Uddhava Gita, we see that karma, jnana, and bhakti. He gives these 3 processes. Why does he give 3 processes? The reason for all of this. Karma is meant for Trivarga, Dharmartha. Jnana is for moksha. And bhakti is for Bhagavad Prema. So this is the general arrangement. Therefore, all of them are meant for those who have desires for this. One who desires Trivarga, desires dharma or artha or kama. If he doesn't take advantage of it, he will not be able to elevate himself. He will not be able to progress. He will regress. He will fall into vikarma. Therefore, so much of care was there in Vedic civilization. Therefore, Vastu, therefore, Jyotisha, therefore, all these arrangements were there. All of them help us elevate ourselves from Tamoguna to Rajoguna to Satoguna to Aprakrita, the spiritual status. Intimate touch with dollars and cents men or the kingly order is worse than suicide for one who desires to go back to Godhead. Why is no decision taken for keeping brahmacharis in safe condition? The brahmacharis themselves should be worried about all this, no? The brahmacharis are all so happy and joyous to be in Maya, and then they suffer, and then Maya Devi comes and gives one kick after another, after another, after another. And then you put the whole blame on everybody else. What is that? They'll simply ask, what happened to you? Why you guys were so happy about it? Ultimately, we cannot tell, what happened, you have to face Yamaraj. You cannot say, no, what is the GBC? Yamaraj will say, what GBC, ABC? What is it? You, that's all. You are accepted, you are responsible. That's it. We're supposed to utilize our own intelligence. Okay. वेदोक्तमेव कुर्वाणो निस्संगोऽर्पितम् ईश्वरे नैष्कर्म्यं लभते सिद्धिं रोचनार्था फलश्रुतिः. By executing without attachment the regulated activities prescribed in the Vedas, offering the results of such work to the Supreme Lord, one attains the perfection of freedom from the bondage of material world. The material fruitive results offered in the revealed scriptures are not the actual goal of Vedic knowledge, but are meant for stimulating the interest of the performer. Ava, moreover, कर्मफले आसक्ति ना करिया एवं ईश्वरे ওই কর্ম অর্পণ করতঃ যিনি বেদোক্ত কর্ম আচরণ করেন তিনি কর্ম হইতে মুক্ত হইয়া নৈষ্কর্ম্য সিদ্ধি লাভ করেন. When one is not attached to the results or the material benefits that come about by karma, which means varna dharma, ashrama dharma, sri dharmas, and one offers those activities to the Lord. That means one performs these activities out of obedience to the Lord. So if with such an arrangement, he carries out the activities of karma as stated in the Vedic scriptures, then he becomes liberated from the bondage of karma. and he attains the perfection of Naishkarmya. Naishkarmya means one no longer has, one is no longer bound by the reactions of these activities. Naishkarmya Siddhi Karmer Vastavik all. And this perfection of Naishkarmya itself is the real result, real prescribed result for the activities of karma. Anna je ফলশ্রুতি তাহা কেবল নৈষ্কর্ম্য কর্মে উৎপাদন করিবার জন্য উক্ত হইয়াছে জানিবে. You should understand that the other results are just to bring about Naishkarmya, this state where one is in the mode of goodness and is completely freed from all of these complex bondage with karmic reaction. Chamasaha Rajanam 11.5.5. Pro Rajanya Vaishyo va Hare Prapta Padantikam Shrautena Janmana Thapi Muhyantyamnaya Vadinaha. On the other hand, Brahmanas, members of the royal order and Vaishyas, even after being allowed to approach the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord Hari by receiving the second birth of Vedic initiation, can become bewildered and adopt various materialistic philosophies. Brahman, Kshatriya, or Vaishya, Shrauta Janmala Puriya, Hari Bhajaner Adhikar Pai. Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas attain the eligibility to engage in service to Lord Hari after they attain Shrauta Janma. They attain Vedic initiation. It is considered one kind of birth. Jodi Tahara or Adhikar Lav Koryao, and despite having attained that eligibility, Vedarthavade Ratahoy, they are simply engaged in Vedarthavad. That means they only consider the teachings of the Vedas to be theories. They consider that the spiritual instructions presented in the Vedas as just some kind of theory. Tahara moha prapta hoya thake. Then they become bewildered. Karma Mimamsakgan is Shreni Pukta. The Karma Mimamsakas are in this category. They actually don't pay attention to the Upanishadic injunctions that one should become detached, renounced, and so on. They consider these are all Arthavada. These are just background theoretical discussions that somehow set the scene for people to, dharmic people to engage in material pious activities. Eleven. So, this is going to take me forever. लोके व्यवायाम विषमद्य सेवा नित्या ही जंतो नहीं तत्र चोदना व्यवस्थितिस्तेषु विवाह यज्ञ सुराग्रहेरासु निवृत्तिरिष्टा. In this material world, the conditioned soul is always inclined to sex, meat eating, and intoxication. Therefore, religious scriptures never actually encourage such activities. Although the scriptural injunctions provide for sex through sacred marriage, for meat eating through sacrificial offerings, and for intoxication through the acceptance of ritual cups of wine, such ceremonies or meant for the ultimate purpose of renunciation. বেদের অর্থবাদে রত হইয়া তাহারা সিদ্ধান্ত করে যে স্ত্রী সঙ্গ আমিষ ভোজন ও মদ্যপান বেদের প্রেরণা অর্থাৎ প্রেরণা রূপে তত্ত্বযজ্ঞে ব্যবস্থাপিত হইয়াছে। Because they speculate about the meaning of the Vedas, therefore they conclude that Stri Sangha, association with women, through marriage, of course, eating meat, medhya mamsa, food source which are offerable in sacrifice, eating them, and madhyapan, drinking wine, specific type of wine, that is soma. Soma, there's one particular type of wine called soma, which is offered in fire sacrifices, the demigods. So the Vedas are actually inducing people to do these activities through, and therefore there are these arrangements for these fire sacrifices, different forms of sacrifices. This is the purport of the Vedas. That's how they think. Kintu tahara jane na je, but they don't know that ওই সকল প্রবৃত্তি জন্তু মাত্রেরাই নিসর্গগত. These are just natural propensities of every living creature. সুতরাং consequently প্রেরণাকে অপেক্ষা করে না. So because these are natural impulses, you don't need to depend on the Vedas to be instigated to carry them out. সেই সকল প্রবৃত্তির নিবৃত্তি করিবার জন্য বিবাহ দ্বারা স্ত্রী সঙ্গ যজ্ঞ বিশেষ আমিষ ভোজন এবং সুরাগ্রহণ ব্যবস্থিত হইয়াছে. It is in fact to curb all of these propensities that association with women through wedding, eating meat through specific yagyas, and accepting wine through specific sacrifices has been arranged. অতএব নিবৃত্তি বেদের গূঢ় তাৎপর্য. Therefore, the confidential purport of the Vedas is nothing but restraining us from these natural impulses. यद घ्राण भक्षो विहितः सुरायास तथा पशोरा लभनम न हिंसा एवं यवाय प्रजया न रत्या imam vishuddham na vidusva dharma. According to the Vedic injunctions, when wine is offered in sacrificial ceremonies, it is later to be consumed by smelling and not by drinking. Similarly, the sacrificial offering of animals is permitted, but there is no provision for wide-scale animal slaughter. Religious sex life is also permitted, but only in marriage for begetting children, and not for sensuous exploitation of the body. Unfortunately, however, the less intelligent materialists cannot understand that their duties in life should be performed purely on the spiritual platform. ক্রিয়া বিশেষে মদের ঘ্রাণকে ভক্ষণ রূপে বিষিক্ত হইয়াছে এবং পশুদিগের আলভনেই বিধান, পশুবধের বিধান নয়. In specific rites, specific rituals, there is an arrangement to consume wine only by smelling it, and touching animals has been arranged for, not killing animals. সেইরূপ স্ত্রী সঙ্গ কেবল সন্তান উৎপাদনের জন্য বিহিত, রতির জন্য নয়. Similarly, স্ত্রী সঙ্গ, association with women through marriage, of course, has been prescribed only to generate children, not for sexual activity. এই বিশুদ্ধ বেদমতেই অধর্ম, It is this pure teaching of the Veda that is Swadharma. Into Vedarthavad, Vedartha Ved Karigan Taha Janena. Arthavad, actually, Vedarthavad Karigan Taha Janena. But these people who speculate on the meaning of the Vedas, they do not know this. ये त्वनेवं विदो सन्तः स्तब्धा सद्दपमानिनः पशून् दृह्यन्ते विश्रब्धा प्रत्य खादन्ति ते च तान्. Those sinful persons who are ignorant of actual religious principles yet consider themselves to be completely pious, without compunction, commit violence against innocent animals, who are fully trusting in them. In the next life, such sinful persons will be eaten by the same creatures they have killed in this world. जे व्यक्ति यही वेद तात्पर्य जाने ना, जे असत स्तब्ध ও সদভিমানী, সেই সকল লোক নির্ভয়ে পশুবধ করে এবং তাহাদের মৃত্যুর পর ওই পশু সকল তাহাদিগকে খায়. So all these people who don't understand the purport of the Vedas, all these evil, proud persons who consider themselves to be saintly authorities, they fearlessly kill animals in the name of animal sacrifices. But after they die, all those animals will eat them. Vishantah parakayeshu swatmanam harimishwaram mritake sanubandesmin bandhasneha patatyathaha. The conditioned souls become completely bound in affection to their own corpse-like material bodies and their relatives and paraphernalia. In such a proud and foolish condition, the conditioned souls envy other living entities as well as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, who resides in the heart of all beings. Thus enviously offending others, the conditioned souls gradually fall down into hell. Dekha, just see, Atma Swarup Ishwar Hari, Paro Sharire Avasthan Koriteche. The ultimate soul, the Supreme Lord Hari, is residing in others' bodies. Mudhagan, Parakayastita Harike, Videsh Purva, Shabatulla Anitya Dehe, Ocean Abhipraye, Oshu was Dara, Dehoke, Vadhasneha Vaya, Adahpatita Hoy. Foolish people, they hate Lord Hari, who is situated in others' bodies. And therefore, they have the intention to nourish their own bodies, which are actually like dead bodies and which are temporary. With this in mind, they fall down because of their continuous affection for their bodies, because they engage in killing of these animals. Bhagavan Uddhavam. So the idea is that there are people who sit and study the four Vedas very, very deeply. Very deeply. The Sarvamimamsa group, they study the Vedic scriptures, four Vedas, very deeply. But then they come to completely bizarre conclusions, completely outrageous conclusions. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead further told Uddhava, Shabda Brahmani Nishnato na Nishnayat Pare Yadi Shamastasya Samapalo Yadheno Mivarakshataha. If through meticulous study one becomes expert in reading Vedic literature but makes no endeavor to fix one's mind on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then one's endeavor is certainly like that of a man who works very hard to take care of a cow that gives no milk. In other words, the fruit of one's laborious study of Vedic knowledge will simply be the labor itself. There will be no other tangible result. Shabda Brahmaru Vedavakya Nishthakuriyavo. Despite being so much fixed in the statements of the Vedas, which constitute Shabda Brahma, the absolute truth in the form of sound. Veda Tatparja Rup Parabrahme Avagahan Nagoe. If one is not or does not immerse himself in the Supreme Brahman, who is the purport of those Vedic literature, তবে বৎসহীন গাভীর অক্ষার ন্যায় বেদবাক্যে তাহার যত্ন কেবল সমফল উৎপাদন করে. So then his endeavors in studying the statements of the Vedas are simply useless labor. They produce useless labor. Just like taking care of a cow that is devoid of her calf. Gam dugdhadoham asatim ch bharyam deham paradhinam asat prajamcha vittam tvatirthi kritamangavacham kina maya rakshati dukkha dukhi. My dear Uddhava, that man is certainly most miserable who takes care of a cow that gives no milk, an unchaste wife, a body totally dependent on others, useless children, or wealth not utilized for the right purpose. Similarly, one who studies Vedic knowledge devoid of my glories is also most miserable. Dugdhahin Gabhi, Asati Bharja, Paradhin Deha, Asat Putra, Satpatre, Anyastadhan, Jerub Dukher Karan. Just as a cow that does not give milk, a wife who is not chaste, a body that is dependent on others, a son who is not saintly, wealth that is not deposited to worthy recipients are causes of misery. Shairup amake parityag kuriya vedavakye jini japna karen. Similarly, that person who endeavors to study the statements of the Vedas while abandoning me, Ini Bodo Dukhi, he is greatly distressed. Bhagavan Uddhava, 11.21.35. Veda Brahmatma Vishaya, Trikanda Vishaya ime. Parokshvada Rishaya Paroksham Mamacha Priyam. The Vedas, divided into three divisions, ultimately reveal the living entity as pure spirit soul. The Vedic seers and mantras, however, deal in esoteric terms, and I also am pleased by such confidential descriptions. সাধারণ মানুষের পক্ষে এই সকল বেদবাক্য কর্ম দেবতা ও যজ্ঞরূপে কাণ্ডময়. From the perspective of ordinary human beings, the statements of the Vedas are in the form of three divisions: karma, devata, and yajna. They deal with these divisions, which deal with these subject matters. Kintu tatparja bujhile, but if you understand the purport of the Vedas, the intention behind the Vedas, সকল বেদবাক্যে ভগবত ভজন রূপ ব্রহ্মাত্ম বিষয়ক বলিয়া দেখা যাইবে. Then you will see that all the statements of the Vedas are having Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan as a subject matter, as devotional service to Bhagavan as a subject matter. Of course, Brahmatma Vishaya means they have a spiritual subject matter. They are focused on the Supreme Spirit, Bhagavan, service to him. Veder samasta mantrae parokshavad, অর্থাৎ যাহা অর্থ বলিয়া প্রতীত হয় তাহা ইতর তাৎপর্য নয়, তাহা ইহার তাৎপর্য নয়, পরমার্থেই গূঢ় তাৎপর্য. all the mantras of the Vedas are statements that express their intentions indirectly. Parokshavad. They're indirect in their expression. In other words, the apparent meaning is not their intended meaning. Spirituality is the confidential intended meaning of all these Vedic mantras. ওই মন্ত্র সকলের প্রণেতা ঋষিগণ পরোক্ষকে আমার প্রিয় জানিয়া পরোক্ষবাদ অবলম্বন করিয়াছেন. The rishis who presented all these mantras, they knew that I am very fond of such indirect descriptions. Therefore, they took shelter of such indirect presentations. Brahma Sudurbodham Pranendriya Manomayam Anantaparam Gambhiram Durvigahyam Samudravat. Achyutanamru. Okay, wait. So first of all, there's a question here. What are ritual cups of wine? In certain sacrifices, there are ritual cups of wine, but they are actually meant for smelling, not for drinking. Achyutanamru.
Prabhuji, why is Lord pleased by indirect descriptions? Why not direct descriptions is pleasing to him?
Because the conditioned souls are attracted to Trivarga. So the Vedic system, both the Shruti and the Smriti, they apparently promote Trivarga. Because they present Trivarga, therefore the conditioned souls become attracted to them. And when they develop faith in the Vedic scriptures, then they progress. Then there is a chance that they might progress towards understanding the actual intention of the Vedic scriptures. Vaigunya Vishaya Veda, Nisvaigunya Bhavarjana. This is that part. Okay. Did I read this out?
Okay.
The transcendental sound of the Vedas is very difficult to comprehend and manifests on different levels within the prana, senses, and mind. This Vedic sound is unlimited, very deep and unfathomable, just like the ocean. Vedartha Badigaon, Vedartha ke samanna boliya gyan kore. These theoretical speculators of the teachings of the Shruti, they consider the teachings of the Vedas to be ordinary knowledge. In the whole academic world is also thinking like this. The academic world, they think that you just learn classical Sanskrit and Vedic Sanskrit and you sit and read and you understand the Shruti. Into Shabda Brahma Durbudh, but Shabda Brahma is actually most difficult to comprehend. Aha Pranandriya Manamai Huyao Anantapa, even though manifests on different levels within the prana, the senses and the mind, it is Anantapar, it is limited. Gambhir, Durvigrahya, very deep and unfathomable. Samudre Nai Avasthit. It's just like an ocean whose depth cannot be understood. There's a question. Madhu Sampradaya does not accept Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as Supreme Lord or Lord Krishna as Yugavatar. Yes. This is their misfortune. Bhagavan Uddhava, 11.21.40, 41, 42. 11.21. Sufficient. Does it come after or it come before? What the person said. Verse 42. विधत्ते किमाचष्टे किमनूद्य विकल्पये इत्यस्य हृदयं लोके नान्यो मद्वेद कश्चन. In the entire world, no one but me actually understands the confidential purpose of Vedic knowledge. Thus, people do not know what the Vedas are actually prescribing in the ritualistic injunctions of Karma Kanda, or what object is actually being indicated in the formulas of worship found in the Upasana Kanda, or that which is elaborately discussed through various hypotheses in the Jnana Kanda section of the Vedas. मां विदत्ते मां विदत्ते भिदत्ते मां विकल्प्यापोह्यते त्वहम् एतावान् सर्ववेदार्थ शब्द आस्थाय मां भिदा माया मात्रं नूद्यन्ते प्रतिषिध्य प्रसीदति. I am the ritualistic sacrifice enjoined by the Vedas. I am the worshipable deity. It is I who am presented as various philosophical hypotheses, and it is I alone who am then refuted by philosophical analysis. The transcendental sound vibration thus establishes me as the essential meaning of all Vedic knowledge. The Vedas, elaborately analyzing all material beauty as nothing but my illusory potency, ultimately completely negate this duality and achieve their own satisfaction. সেই বেদ বাক্য সকল কি বিধান করে তাহাদের তাৎপর্য চেষ্টা কোন দিকে এবং কি অভিপ্রায় করিয়া বিকল্প অর্থাৎ সন্দেহযুক্ত বাক্য সকল বলিয়াছি তাহা আমি ব্যতীত অন্য কেহ জানে না. All that is prescribed in the statements of the Vedas, their endeavors to explain their intentions, in which direction they are moving towards when they present doubtful statements. Other than me, no one else knows. বস্তুতঃ বেদবাক্য সমুদয় আমাকেই অভিধান করে. In reality, all the statements of the Vedas are descriptions of me. আমার শুদ্ধ ভক্তি বিধান করে. All of them prescribe pure devotion service to me. এবং বিকল্প বাক্যে দ্বারা নিরাকরণ করতে হয় দেখায় যে আমি সকল মা হইতে আর কেহ পৃথক নয়. And through statements of philosophical doubt, by refuting those statements, they point out that I am everything. Nothing is separate from me. समस्त वेदे तात्पर्य जे, the purport of all the Vedas is this. শব্দকে অবলম্বন করিয়া প্রথমে ভেদময় মায়া মাত্র আমাকে উদ্যম করতে হয়, শেষে মায়াদ্বৈত প্রতিষেধ পূর্বক অদ্বয় চিৎ স্বরূপে আমাকে স্থাপন করিয়া প্রসন্ন হয়. So initially the Vedas, they take shelter of various words and they analyze me in terms of Maya, who is filled with various forms of differentiations. And then finally, the same Vedic scriptures, they deny this kind of duality found in Maya. And they establish that I am completely transcendental to this Maya. Okay, I'll stop with that. So the idea is that the Vedas are intentionally presented in such a manner that you cannot simply open the book, learn Sanskrit, and just understand the intention of the Vedas. In Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Krishna himself makes it clear that this is not how you understand the purport of the Vedas. Bhagavatam is also part of the Vedic literature. So Bhagavatam itself, but it's different in the sense that it clarifies the teachings of the rest of the Vedas. It is Nirnayaka Shastra. It determines the meaning of the other Vedic scriptures. The other Vedic scriptures are Nirnayatavya Shastra. They are scriptures whose meaning need to be ascertained. You will find this kind of relationship. The Upanishads are clarified in Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is clarified in the Vedanta Sutra. The Vedanta Sutra is clarified in Srimad Bhagavatam. So each higher scripture clarifies the meaning of the lower scriptures. So from the Srimad Bhagavatam itself, we understand that if you want to understand the purport of the Vedas, then you need to actually surrender to Srimad Bhagavatam. The teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam are the factual teachings of the four Vedas. Okay, I'll stop with this. I'll just put a note that I have come to this point. Okay. This Madhu Sampradaya doesn't accept Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That is because they are not interested in knowing anything beyond what Madhvacharya has taught. How can you help those who are like that? Okay.